Welcome, Dirtbags, to another edition of Fantasy Dirt. Lindsay, Rhodes, and Michael Fabiano with you on this Wednesday. That means that we have rankings coming up. We're going to tell you who has better than normal matchups this week, worse than normal matchups this week. We'll tell you who's moving up and down in the rankings. We also have Jem Piatenti, who is going to join us with a very special introduction song sent in by a listener. So I can't wait to hear this one. And
yeah, I get the day off.
Her favorite,
or maybe the listeners get the Wednesday off from listening to my crowing
for Thursday Night Football. That's coming up. First, though, big news, huge. You guys, Scott Fishbowl is sort of generates a lot of discussion in the months of like July and early August because a lot of people are drafting their Scott Fishbowl teams. You guys know how popular that is. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably do. There are just under 4,000 people that are in Scott Fishbowl that have Scott Fishbowl teams. You know who is number one in scoring through 3 weeks out of all 3,996 of those people? Mr. Fabiano.
Hey now.
Hey.
You know what?
Insert cheering.
I got I got a 0 from Rashid Shaheed last week, and I still am number one.
Rubbing it in.
No, I'm just saying, like, it could be better.
I'm number one, and I got a 0. Like that was an unnecessary flex.
Whatever. Listen, the team is performing well. Let's hope the injury bug doesn't bite us. I think the. Are
you doing like a generic player walk off?
That's right. It's a press conference. I'm the coach.
Totally.
We just want to stay healthy. It's right there in front of us. Now I sound like Aaron Boone.
Control.
We can only control what we can control. We're not looking ahead.
Okay.
On to Cincinnati. Whatever. Okay.
Well,
yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, here's one of the things that I want to know. Do you have Trey McBride on your team? Because that might cause some problems for you. Let's get to the news. Trey McBride is still in concussion protocol. Womp womp. This is not good news. No, especially since we're so excited about the other options at tight end that we discussed earlier in the week, eliminating the position altogether in fantasy. So this is not ideal in terms of pivot options here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, like, you can go ahead and pick up Cole Kmet and play him. He had a good game last week. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have a good game this week. If you're in a deeper league, I mean, you may even look at Elijah Higgins, who's going to replace Trey McBride if he can't play against the Commanders. I know, but Lindsay, like, I mean, we say that and then watch him go off and have a good game. Like, I told people to play Brenton Strange and he had 9 points. So like, it's so, I guess when things are wild, I guess you try and make some wild predictions and hope maybe something wild happens. And so Higgins might be an option. I don't know what kind of leagues people are in. Who knows if Kittle's coming back this week? He's still hurt. Laporta's got the ankle. We're not sure about him. Njoku's still not practicing. Evan Ingram, we don't know about. I mean, it's a disaster. So,
is like, available?
I mean, he's probably available in some leagues, sure. But again, like, I mean, he had a good game 2 weeks ago, and then this past week he was meh. You could go with Hayden Hurst, but I don't trust Hayden Hurst.
Nah.
I don't trust Will Dissly. I don't trust any of the Chargers tight ends, especially if, I guess it doesn't matter, but, Justin Herbert, I don't think he's going to play. So I think the players that you guys need to prepare yourself to be without, and there's a long list at tight end, is McBride, is Laporta. Hopefully Laporta will be okay. Is Kittle, is Njoku, it's Evan Ingram. You should plan on being without them. Waivers have already run. So hopefully you've already gone out and gotten yourself a replacement, whether it's Cole Kmet or Lindsay said Mike Gesicki. I mentioned Brenton Strange, who's got Houston this week. Zach Ertz, who at least is getting targets. It sucks out there, folks. It's a dumpster fire.
Andy Dalton has been announced as the Panthers Week 4 starter. Did anyone need that announcement? Were we wondering?
Well, Dave Canales came out and said it. So, I mean,
did anyone need to hear that? Like, who was asking? Of course he's the Week 4 starter.
Did you
Were
see?
they like, you know what? This worked very, very well. We're going to rip that off. We're not going to do that anymore because it was successful. We're going to go right back to Bryce. Like, why? Why is this a conversation? Anyway.
Have you seen the AI posts on social media
Yes.
that are flipping around? I got to be honest with you. AI scares me
Scares
because like
me.
it is insane. Like obviously Andy Dalton did not have a press conference and go out and just trash Bryce Young, but like the naive people out there may have looked at it and be like,
Yeah.
whoa, what is he saying? Like AI scares me. I don't like that stuff, but
There's another one of Caleb going out there and talking about how the people around him are trash. Like it's
yeah,
a
it's
scary,
just,
scary.
yeah, it's not cool.
No.
It's not cool, but hey, at least if you have Deontay Johnson, for example, maybe you feel more comfortable starting him now. And this is a revenge game. Dalton's got the Bengals, the team that drafted him, that he was with for most of his career. So take that for what it's worth.
We are hearing that Joe Mixon is still week to week, but that the Texans are expecting to have Dameon Pierce back this week. That is an upgrade over Cam Akers.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, it's like a Hyundai is an upgrade over a Kia, I think.
I don't know, man. I don't know. That scares me. The Texans had a really hard time with their run blocking this past week. That was against the Vikings. So that's worth keeping in mind because the Vikings defense is crushing. So that might not be an issue that they run into against the Jaguars, who are terrible across the board. I've got a bunch of defensive stats that I can pass along, and they pop in negative ways in just about every possible way that you could look at. So that's something to keep in mind there with the Texans running backs. David Njoku's still not practicing in Cleveland. Cleveland's a disaster. Nobody's practicing. I mean, I'm joking. Mari's practicing, but like Jerome Ford is not expected to practice today. He's now dealing with a knee injury. A couple of their tackles are also missing. That's Wills and Conklin. Offensive guard Wyatt Teller was placed on IR. They brought up Jermaine Fetty from the practice squad. My guess is that he'll see time at tackle this week. It's a dumpster fire from an offensive line standpoint. So I don't know how I feel about playing really any of the Panthers offensive pieces with a whole lot of confidence there, Fabs. I know it's the Raiders and the Raiders defense is bad. Which way do you lean there?
Well, so for Cleveland, I mean, I'm starting Amari Cooper. I you know, as long as he's going to be out there, and I know he's got some kind of undisclosed ailment, but we got to keep tabs on his status. But other than that, like honestly, if Ford doesn't play, I would play Deontay Foreman as a flex if I was in need. I don't have any problem with that because you're hurting. People are starting Carson Steele, you know, so I don't mind starting Deontay Foreman if Ford is out and if Ford plays because of the knee. Is he going to be limited? The Browns do not have a lot to like from a fantasy perspective, especially if Njoku cannot come back again this week. And Lindsay had talked about the Raiders being a defense that she would like to stream this week. And that seems like a pretty smart move, even though the Panthers trashed him last week, just because the Browns are banged up all over the offensive side of the football.
If Jerome Ford is fine and the injury doesn't limit him in the game, then just know this. Raiders are tied for the most rushing yards per play allowed so far this season, the second highest rushing yards over expectation per attempt allowed, and they are tied for the second highest yards before contact per attempt allowed. So that's a pretty good environment for a running back if you can take advantage of that. I just am not 100% sure that the Browns with their offensive line issues are necessarily set up to smash in that situation the way that you would otherwise expect going up against a defense like that. But we'll see. There are other injuries. Well, actually, you mentioned Carson Steele. Let's say real quick that Kareem Hunt has been signed to the Chiefs active roster. That happened today. Keontae Ingram was waived. So if for whatever reason you have him somewhere on your bench, you can go ahead and ditch that. But Kareem Hunt maybe muddies the waters here a little bit based on what we saw last week, which was not necessarily a playable fantasy option in terms of the split and the production. But Carson Steele did look good just from a pure football standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny too, because like at some point you're going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, which is going to make it even worse. So Kansas City's backfield went from one where you're starting Isaiah Pacheco every week without fail to now, I don't know who you start. And I don't know if you start anybody. Honestly, it's a desperation kind of thing. And during the bye weeks, that thing's going to be even tougher because you're going to have fewer options and people are going to be starting guys off of that backfield that we just don't want to, you know, like Samaje Perine. That there potentially is going to be a 3-man rotation there. I don't know. It's not something that I'd be excited to have. I don't have any Pacheco shares. I didn't get any P. Ryan. I didn't get any Steele. I didn't want it. I might have one share of Kareem Hunt. But folks, I mean, let's remember, guys are on the street for a reason. Most times it's not going to be great. Like for every, Joe Flacco, you'll get 10 guys who come out and just do nothing. So I wouldn't go crazy over anybody in that backfield because it's going to be a train wreck until Pacheco comes back.
Here's an interesting stat that I found today about Mahomes, since we're talking about the Chiefs offense, real quick. He has thrown more passes behind the line of scrimmage than any other quarterback through 3 games. 29 of his 92 attempts have been behind the line of scrimmage. He has, Michael Fabiano, the lowest ADOT in the entire National Football League at 4.6.
Yeah.
What's going on with that offense? We're not going down another Chiefs rant.
No.
But I'm just saying, these are interesting stats.
Yeah, I was going to save this for my dirty thought, but I have another one that I could fill it in with. I can't even trade Mahomes. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants him. He's like the misfit toys from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants Patrick Mahomes right now. I tried. The best offer I got was Kyron Williams and Jake Ferguson for Mahomes and Devontae Adams. I'm like, I'm not doing that. It's a 2-quarterback league. I'm not going there.
Wait, so Kyron Williams and Jake Ferguson. And I would be giving up Mahomes and Devontae Adams. But Devontae's my wide receiver too. I've got Hawkinson, who hopefully will be back at some point. I'm not going there. I'm not going to do that. I don't think that's a bad offer.
I'm not saying it's a bad offer. It doesn't work for me.
I'm just saying no, and I'm not. I mean, we're not looking at your roster, but just on the surface, that sounds like a pretty good offer because you can play Kyron. He hasn't been efficient, but you could argue that was roughly the case last year too, and he still put up massive fantasy numbers. And Patrick Mahomes, I mean, to your point, is like low end playable. Like he's not even a guy that you plug in on a week-to-week basis anymore.
If they would go straight up Mahomes for Kyron, and they wouldn't do it. And it's
a 2 QB league. Of course not. Hell no.
It's a 2 QB league too, but it's a 2 QB league. And this other team does not have great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, but they don't do it.
But to the point that you've been making for weeks, I don't know that Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback.
No, I know. Listen, I know.
Right now in fantasy. Yeah.
I'm trying to sell him on name, and it's not happening. I need him to have like a big game before I can ship him out. Isn't it sound strange, Lindsay?
I know. I know.
No one wants Patrick freaking Mahomes.
Right.
And what's funny too is that I'm an idiot because I'm the one who drafted this dumbass in 2 Superflex leagues when I already didn't like him from last year. So I blame myself. So I'm the jerk.
You are.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have anything for you there. I mean, like no one was more anti-Mahomes going into the season than you. So for you to end up,
I know. I figured, they got Xavier Worthy, they got Hollywood Brown, things would change, and
you know what? We don't need to do this right now, but one of the things that I would be interested in looking ahead to that might help your sales pitch or not, is how he did down the stretch last year. Because it started all wonky for him last year too.
Mahomes?
And then obviously, yes.
He wasn't
and then
good. He wasn't good.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
because the team obviously had a lot more success offensively down the stretch. So if it had translated to some more fantasy production, then you could kind of point to that. Like that seems to be the pattern here, that they just kind of ease into the season and it's almost like a load management situation, like they're pacing themselves and waiting to turn on that light.
He had that one good game. I think it was like 25 or 26 points in like the last 6 weeks of last year. Everything else was like 17 and under. Yeah. And so, I mean, I think, at this point it sucks because like the expectation was that Mahomes would bounce back. And so you drafted him expecting 20 plus points a game to get back to that level. And he's not getting back there. I don't know if he's ever getting back there.
How did we end up going down this road again? I'm sorry for bringing up that stat, but I thought that incredibly low ADOT was very, very interesting. Injuries that we'll be monitoring for the rest of the week, just to throw some names on your radar. Obviously, Jordan Love, we don't know yet if he's going to be the quarterback for Green Bay. My guess is that they're going to keep us guessing right up until the last possible second because that's good gamesmanship. Justin Herbert, we don't know if we're going to have him for the Chargers against Kansas City. Skylar Thompson, is he the guy? Is it Snoop? Is it Tim Boyle? We don't even know what's going on in Miami. We know it's not good. Kenneth Walker with that oblique injury. Will we have him? Austin Eckler's in concussion protocol. Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh left because he didn't look right last week. And so we're monitoring that this week. Raheem Mostert, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, both of the wide receivers in Philadelphia. Deebo Samuel, Keenan Allen, Jordan Addison, Sam Laporta. We already mentioned Trey McBride, George Kittle, who was available in one of my leagues, Fab.
Yeah, I put in a claim for
him.
I didn't get him. I don't know who it was. It was a last minute league, I think. Somebody dropped him. I didn't get him, so I tried.
I haven't even checked to see if I did yet. That's the league that it was in. I could not believe that. We need to go look at who that was and then shame them publicly. Yeah, and I'm just kidding.
You talk, I'll look.
Okay, yeah. Evan Ingram, we're also keeping an eye on him. Now let's get to the rankings before we welcome in Jen Piacenti. Again, she's got our Thursday night football props coming up. But first, let's go through the risers and fallers at various position groups. Who is ranked higher than usual this week at quarterback?
I've got Kyler at QB2 this week.
Yeah.
Just behind Josh Allen because he's got the Commanders.
Yep.
So everyone's smashing against the Commanders. And and Kyler and Marvin Harrison will be in my one and done, which, by the way, I think I got to be leading at this point. And then Jaden Daniels is up to 4. I had Jaden Daniels, remember, in week 1, I had him at 12. Then I had him in the top 10. I had him in the top 10 last week. And now I've got him up all the way up to 4. So that's a pretty good jump. So that's into must start territory.
Jaden Daniels, a few notable stats here from this past Monday Night Football game, where obviously the offense had unprecedented success. And we all know about the fact that they didn't punt and they didn't turn the ball over and he had 90% completion. But we all know how good it was, right? I have questions about how much of that has staying power. And this is not related to Jaden Daniels' fantasy value. I think that this is good. We are seeing him get better. We also saw some different things in terms of the play calling for Cliff Kingsbury that I think are just notable to pass along. Jaden Daniels, his ADOT in week 1 was 5.2. We talked about that, how it was a quick passing game. They were getting the ball out fast. They weren't really testing him as a quarterback. They're easing him in. Week 2, 4.5. Week 3, 8.7. They were like, and whole playbook, go ahead. That's a good sign. As long as it continues to go that way and it wasn't just a product of Cincinnati's defense being trash, which it's so bad this year, you guys. I don't even know how it is with Lou Anarumo on the other side of the field, but that's a separate conversation. The other thing that's incredibly interesting, and this pertains to Terry McLaurin, but I think also to Jaden Daniels and the offensive success moving forward, we've talked about Terry McLaurin at left wide receiver and how Cliff Kingsbury loves to take his number 1 wide out and just lock him down on the left side. And the problems that I have with that just in terms of defensive predictability. Week 1, Terry McLaurin lined up at left wide receiver at 85% of his snaps. Week 2, 82% of his snaps. Week 3, 60% of his snaps. They were moving him out of the slot. They moved him around. That touchdown at the end was on the right side. He said after the game that he went to Cliff Kingsbury and said, I want to move to the right side for this play. So maybe that is, I think, a very important stat in terms of their offensive potential moving forward. And I'll be tracking to see if that was just a one-off anomaly or if Cliff Kingsbury is maybe going to move some pieces around a little bit more frequently. But I think that will be important for Jaden Daniels' fantasy success moving forward and clearly for Terry McLaurin's. Quarterback fallers, you already mentioned Patrick Mahomes. He's down to what?
Yeah, I've got Mahomes at 8, and I'm probably going to drop him a little bit more. These are the initial rankings. I'm probably going to put Dak ahead of him because Dak owns the Giants, so I'll probably do that. So he'll be in the top 10, but it'll be probably 9 or 10. And then Anthony Richardson, I dropped to 15 this week, and I don't even know. The problem is that I don't love Sam Darnold's matchup this week. I don't love Kirk Cousins this week. I'm not going to put Caleb Williams ahead of him. Trevor Lawrence has been bad. I don't love Derek Carr's matchup. So I've got him at 15, but even then it's he's got to make better decisions and start running with the football, because if he doesn't run, he's not valuable in fantasy.
I know, but he's got to make smart decisions about when he's running, because I have already mentioned that's on my radar in terms of Flacco. And I did pick up Flacco. I put my money where my mouth was in terms of what I tell you guys to do in the league where I have Anthony Richardson. I went and I got Joe Flacco and I put him on my bench just in case. Running back risers.
Oh, by the way, it was James Jones who cut George Kittle in our
James.
yeah.
I want that makes me wonder if he's like hearing something
It's possible.
or if he's
Tony
just not good at this.
maybe I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. Tony Pollard RB15, and I could end up moving him up as we get a little bit deeper into the week. I love the matchup against Miami. I think he's going to have a tremendous Monday night performance. And then Devin Singletary has moved up. He's up 18. Why? Cowboys. We stick against running backs. And it's funny because everybody who's playing DFS on Thursday night is going to have Singletary in their lineup. Everybody. So, like, if you want to be somewhat contrarian, you got to not put him in there. But it's such a smash spot against an awful Dallas run defense. Now, the Cowboys have been hearing all week how crappy they are, so maybe they'll get their head out of their ass. Who knows? But based on the numbers, Singletary is a really good play.
100%. Yeah, like that one. I will be interested to hear from Jen about that particular player because that is the Thursday Night Football game, and she'll be here to weigh in with her favorite prop bets. So many ways to play fantasy football, like daily fantasy sports is another way. If your, redraft leagues are not doing so great and you want to get in on the action some other way, are you one of the over 5 million active members on Prize Picks, which is the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America, Michael Fabiano? It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is take 2 to 6 players, look at their stat projections, decide whether or not you think they're going to score more or less on any given. Maybe it's receptions, maybe it's yards, whatever it is. And then just watch the winnings roll in. Jen Piacenti joins us every Wednesday and Friday. She gives us a few different people whose numbers she likes. Maybe you could have taken her advice about Greg Dortch last week, which was his receiving number was like around 29.5. If you had gone more, that would have hit. And so there you go. Yep. They're giving you one, Fabs, just like a free square.
I know. Yeah, that's it. Caleb Williams passing yards. All he has to do is get one on Prize Picks. And that is every week in September. Just so you know, you guys know I'm not a big fan of Caleb Williams in fantasy, but he did have 363 of those yards this
that's
past
more than
week.
one.
So they are giving you a little bit of a layup here over at Prize Picks because they want you to join the platform and they want you to win. So you get a winner right there with Caleb Williams right off the bat.
Okay, so that's one. If you get as few as 4 correct picks, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code FANTASYDIRT. You'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That is code FANTASYDIRT on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. That is Prize Picks. Run your games. So who is falling at running back?
Rachaad White, who is now outside of my top 24. So he's now like a flex starter. And I don't even feel comfortable with him as a flex at this point with Bucky Irving taking carries away. And then DeAndre Swift, we've talked about it. His advanced metrics are all garbage. It's not even that the bad matchup is bad. He's been bad. The Bears offense can't run the ball. And so we saw a little bit more of Roschon Johnson last week as well. So Swift is now RB28 and a flex starter for the desperate.
Who do you have lower than him?
Lower than Swift?
Yeah.
Jerome Ford, because I don't know if he's going to play. Zamir White, Javonte Williams, Carson Steele, Zeke, not good running backs at all.
Jerome
he's like
Ford
literally
being lower is interesting.
Well, because he's hurt. He's hurt. I don't know if he's playing. So
what about wide receivers who are moving on up?
2 guys I'm digging on big time this week, and you're going to hear me talk about them and start them and sit them tomorrow, is Jackson Smith-Njigba and Khalil Shakir. Jackson Smith-Njigba has had 2 bad games out of 3 this year, but he's playing Detroit. He runs like 78% of his routes inside. Detroit is awful against slot receivers. So I really think that JSN is going to have a good game. I've got him at wide receiver 23. And I've moved Shakir up to wide receiver 28, which means he's a really good flex this week against the Ravens, who struggle against wide receivers. At least they have over the first 3 weeks. So Smith-Njigba and Khalil Shakir are moving on up.
Okay, so Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 28. Michael Pittman is wide receiver 32. So he's moving down.
Moving down, and it's all about Anthony Richardson. I mean, his completion percentage is terrible. He's not been an accurate passer. And I mean, honestly, like Alec Pierce has had, 2 good games out of 3 weeks, but he also had big plays. And, Pittman's not that guy. If they're not getting the ball, they're loading him up with targets like Gardner did last year. This is going to be a problem for Michael Pittman the rest of the year. And then Jalen Waddle, I got him at 40 right now. I mean, I don't know what to do with these Dolphins wide receivers. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be Skylar Thompson or Tim Boyle. Maybe they'll bring Jay Fiedler out of retirement. I have no freaking clue what to do there, but that's a mess. And so Waddle is, I mean, unless you have to start him, I wouldn't. Let's just put it that way.
I totally agree. Where do you have Tyreek?
I've still got Tyreek in the top 15. Because Tyreek always is like one blown coverage away from putting up a good stat line.
Right.
I know I'm hurt, but here's the guys that I have behind him.
Okay.
Adams, Olave, DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, who I don't love the matchup, Drake London. So like, I mean, trust me, folks, Tyreek is hard to rank right now, but I still got him. Normally he's in my top 3. So dropping down into the teens is certainly a precipitous drop.
So that's another faller. And Garrett Wilson, I would imagine, also counts as a faller relatively, right? Because he's got Patrick Surtain this week, and Patrick Surtain locked up Mike Evans last week. So just something to put on your radar. If you have Garrett Wilson, he's not going to be in like the sits or anything like that, I would imagine, tomorrow, because you're not going to sit Garrett Wilson.
I have him as a receiver with a bad matchup. So like, I mean, people will just take that for what it's worth because he does.
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to squeeze him in here when we're talking about fallers, right? Because it's all relative there, but he is falling in the rankings this week relative to where you would normally find him. Tight end risers.
I've got Cole Kmet at tight end 8, and maybe it's just craziness and insane, but the snaps were there last week. The targets were there last week. Now, if Keenan Allen's coming back, then that changes things. It's only Wednesday. But right now I got him in my top 10. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the Rams are not good against tight ends either. They haven't been dating back to last year. So
aren't good at anything right now on defense.
So like, I mean, like I'd rather play Cole Kmet this week than Mark Andrews. Honestly, I don't know what to do with Mark Andrews. So I've got Kmet at 8, and then I've got Brenton Strange. I moved him up to tight end 17, and he may move up a little bit more depending on, further reports on Evan Engram and whether or not he's going to play or not. I like Brenton Strange. Like Trevor Lawrence likes to throw to his tight ends, and Strange is no stranger to targets. Oh, that was a good one. He had a touchdown last week. He got me 9 points. I'll take it. 9 points is like gold at a tight end position. That's an absolute disaster right now.
So you mentioned Mark Andrews. He falls a little bit. He's still at tight end 9. He's a tough one. I will say this. They only threw the ball 15 times last week. So in terms of him having a big goose egg with 1 target and no catches, that is to a degree relative to the amount of opportunities that they had within the offense, period, just because they didn't throw the ball that much. I would look at this matchup against the Bills, and I would suggest that they're probably going to be throwing more frequently. I do not expect the Ravens to jump out to a lead and then, sit on the run. I don't think it's going to play out that way. So I think you're going to need to be a little bit more balanced. I don't know if you agree with that assessment, and you're probably going to see more pass attempts from Baltimore against Buffalo at the very least, and that might lead to a little bit more success.
And again, I bring up week 1 and week 2. Like, okay, they didn't throw last week because they didn't have to. What about the first 2 weeks? It's shocking to me. It's shocking to me. And then, Travis Kelce, I honestly, I don't know that Travis Kelce has looked worse. And again, he's a mid-30s tight end, but we started to see the decline last year a little bit. We just didn't think he would fall off a cliff, which is exactly what's happened. I mean, I've got Travis Kelce as my tight end 2 this week. I don't feel good about it because I don't know who to rank ahead of him. I got Laporta ranked ahead of him at 1, and like he's got an ankle injury. I'm not even sure if he's going to play. I don't even have McBride ranked because when I hear concussion and protocol, I'm thinking he's not going to play this week. So, I mean, that's why I don't have Devontae Smith in my rankings either because he took a big hit. And so, the NFL and these teams are like really, really like, dude, you got to handle these guys with kid gloves, it's concussion stuff. So, I mean, I got Jalen Hurts lower this week because who the hell is he going to throw the football to? Especially if Smith can't play, and Brown's hurt too.